I did my best to make up for our late start, but we kept losing time along the way. In addition to the inevitable pit stops and a break to pick up some lunch, the wound in Esther's arm was clearly causing her more pain than the ibuprofen could handle. Finally, I pulled off the interstate at Harrisonburg and went looking for a drugstore. I passed by a couple of chain stores and finally found an old-fashioned family drugstore. The pharmacist on duty was a woman, and when I showed her Esther's arm, she became very sympathetic. "I'm trying to get my wife to our family doctor in D.C., I told her, "but I don't know whether she can hold out till we get there." The woman went back among the shelves and reappeared with a little white envelope. "Here's a Lortab," she told me. "It's a combination of acetaminophen and hydrocodone. I can't give you more than one without a prescription, but this should help your wife till you can get home. I'd recommend she have something to eat before she takes it." I thanked the druggist profusely for her kindness, and we climbed back into the car. Esther wanted to hold off a little before she took the medicine in case it made her sleepy, so I drove another hour until we reached the turnoff to I-66 and stopped in Front Royal. By then it was after 8 p.m., and we were both hungry. We found a funny little burger joint called Spelunkers, I guess because of Skyline Caverns, and we had burgers and fries, which were surprisingly good. Esther took the Lortab with her meal, and it seemed to hit her almost right away because she started to get drowsy right after we finished. I was worn out too, so it was obvious to me that we weren't going to make it home that night. There was a Super 8 motel almost right across the street, so after we finished our meal I drove the car over there and got us a room. I helped Esther inside and she was out like a light only minutes after she hit the bed. That left me to sit around in the darkened room, and once again my mind started revisiting everything that had happened. In only a few days my whole life had been turned upside down, and the person who had caused all this chaos was none other than my wife Ginny, the woman I had loved without reservation and for whom I would have gladly given my life before all this started. Betrayal, I thought, has to be the worst sin. When you love and trust someone only to discover that they aren't equally committed, it shakes the very foundations of your being. I felt so many emotions that I couldn't even identify them all. The only thing I knew for sure was that Ginny was the last person I wanted to see. The more I thought about the possibility of encountering her, the more upset I got until I did something I shouldn't have done. I went outside, turned on my cell phone and called Ginny's number, hoping that she wouldn't answer. Sure enough, the call rolled over to her voicemail, and hearing her recorded message brought my emotions quickly to the boiling point. "It's me, Ginny," I said, trying hard not to yell at her. "Listen, I know all about you, about your affair with Amir. I heard what you'd like to do with him when you're stuck at home with me, and it made me sick. If you're enjoying my content, consider joining my Patreon community. By becoming a patron, you'll get access to full parts of my videos much earlier than everyone else. Plus, you'll be supporting me to create even more awesome content for you. Check out the link in the description to join now. I can't believe you betrayed me like that, after all I've done for you, and especially after all the things you said to me about faithfulness." I realized my voice was rising, and I took a deep breath to try to calm myself. "Anyway, I'll be home tomorrow and I don't want you there. Go to your boyfriend's house, or to your parents, or go to hell for all I care. Just stay away from our house, because the only time I want to see you again is in divorce court." I wanted to say more, something to convey all the hurt and anger I felt, but I couldn't come up with anything clever, so I hung up. At that moment, I wished I had an old-fashioned phone with a receiver so I could slam it down. I was still pretty upset, so I walked east along South Street for a little way and then retraced my steps. When I got back to our room, Esther was still sleeping. I looked at her and wondered what she was really like. Did she have a boyfriend back in Israel? Did she cheat on him? I shook my head, trying to dispel my dark thoughts. At least she had saved my life. And even though I knew she wanted my help, she hadn't hesitated to put herself in harm's way for me. That had to count for something. I lay down beside her. Even through the covers, I could feel the warmth of her body, and it felt good. Then I realized that I was likely to be sleeping alone for a long time to come. On that sad note, I drifted off to sleep. The continental breakfast the motel offered wasn't much, but it fueled us enough to get us on our way. Esther told me that her arm was feeling a lot better, but when we were ready to leave, I got back behind the wheel. Besides, I knew the way to my home in College Park. It took us another hour and a half to get to Washington, and then we had to drive halfway around the Beltway. But once we made it to College Park, the traffic dropped off significantly. With all the University of Maryland students gone for Christmas break, the streets were almost deserted. I drove through our neighborhood warily, but when I went by my house, it appeared that Ginny had gotten my warning because her car was not in the driveway. I circled around the block once and then parked. Inside the house was a mess, but I ignored it. I sure didn't feel like I had to apologize to Esther for Ginny's sloppy housekeeping. We had turned our formal dining room into a home office, and I let Esther in there and began booting up my computer. But before I could log on to the NSA network, I heard a key in the lock of the front door. Damn it, I cursed. I told her not to come here. I ran to the door and yanked it open. There was Ginny, tears pouring down her face. "I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm sorry," she blubbered. Before I could say anything, she was shoved forward into my arms, and as I automatically tried to catch her, a man suddenly emerged from behind the frame of the door and barged into the house. "What in the hell?" I yelled, but then I saw the big black automatic he was pointing at me, and I stopped abruptly. Esther had rushed up behind us. "Get back," the man said menacingly, brandishing his gun to include all three of us. After slamming the door shut, his face took on a grin of triumph as he stared at us. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Amir Nasser." He gestured at me. "And you must be the hapless C," he said with a sneer. Then his eyes caught sight of Esther, and his smile widened. "And who have we here? I do believe it's the redoubtable Esther Freeman, the Mossad lackey." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Esther tense, and I realized that she was about to spring. Amir must have seen it too, because he shifted his gun to aim at her. "No, no, no," he warned her. "Don't even think about it. You would die even if you managed to get my gun." Then he pulled open his jacket, and we all could see the vest he wore under it. "One wrong move and I blow us all away. Me to paradise and you three to damnation." Esther relaxed her muscles while Ginny and I stood there, paralyzed by fear. "Very well, nerd boy," Amir said with a sneer. "Let's see how much you've learned about our little surprise." With that, he stepped into my home office, turned to my computer, and moved the mouse to clear the screensaver. When it did so, the flat screen revealed the login page for the NSA network. "The password," he said. "Give it to me." "No," I said flatly. I was hoping that keeping him in the dark about our progress might give us some leverage with him. "So, the C wants to show he has some balls after all," he laughed. "I wonder what it will take for me to convince you to cooperate. Maybe if I K her." I saw Esther stand up a little straighter, and I realized that she was fully prepared to die. But Amir laughed again. "No, she is a soldier, and I think you know that all soldiers must be prepared to die sooner or later. I don't think her death will motivate you." Suddenly, he swung the gun towards Ginny. "So how about this one?" he asked rhetorically. "I wonder if you still have enough feelings left for her to want to prevent her death?" "Amir," Ginny shrieked. "You can't mean it, not after everything we've done." Amir's face contorted into a look of distaste and contempt. "Be silent. You are nothing to me. Simply another Western W ready to spread her and dishonor her husband at the first opportunity." Then he turned back to me, and his face took on a sly smile. "But I don't think I'll K her. What if I merely mutilate her, say shoot chest she likes to flaunt?" Ginny uselessly clasped her hands across her bosom and began to sob piteously, but Amir kept his eyes on me the whole time. Damn it, I was so angry at her for betraying me, but I still didn't want to see her tortured. I couldn't shake off years of protecting her that easily. All right, I said. "Don't shoot her. I'll give you the password." "Much better," he said, turning away from Ginny and back toward the keyboard. "What is it?" "His hands," I thought. "I've got to capture his hands." Suddenly I had a crazy idea. If it didn't work, he would probably kill me on the spot. But then, I thought, he'll probably kill me anyway once he's certain that I haven't figured out how to disable his virus. "I don't have it memorized," I told him. "I used the product code written on that metal cube on the bookshelf." "You really are a nerd," he said with contempt as he picked the cube up and examined it. It was made of a flat silvery metal about an inch on each side. "But that's only half the password," I said breathlessly. "The other half is on the second cube over here," I said, pointing at a wooden cabinet behind me. Now his suspicions were fully alerted, and I could almost feel the spot on my chest where his gun was aimed. "Pick it up and show it to me. Slowly now," he directed, being careful not to make any sudden moves. I picked up the cube off the wooden shelf and held it up for him to see. It was identical to the one he held. "Do you want me to bring it to you?" I asked. "No," he snapped quickly. "Place it on the floor and slide it over to me with your foot. Gently." Ginny was still crying and Esther was watching me with a curious expression as I knelt down, placed the cube on the floor, and gave it a shove toward him with my shoe. "Now back up, all of you," he snarled. When we were back against the far wall, he put his gun down with an easy reach, knelt and grabbed the second cube in his right hand, while still holding the first one in his left. Then he stood and brought the two up to examine them. But, to his astonishment and ours, his hands seemed to accelerate towards each other and slam together with so much force that I heard the bones in his fingers fracture.